Okay, this is the antisocial socialite back at it again. Thanks so much for everyone who's tuning in. Shout out to all of you wonderful new subscribers. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you are new to the channel or you have not yet subscribed, what are you waiting for, darling? Hit that subscribe button, smash that notification bell, so when I get to running this mouth, baby, you are in the loop. This video has been a long time coming, so without further ado, let's jump straight into the breakdown of W.A.P. At the beginning of the video, you come to a large green gate with the letters W.A.P on the gate. You can see the gate is covered in spirals, which are a symbol for femininity, womanhood, or mothering. And as the gates open, you proceed down this tunnel of arches and flowers. And when I saw this, it reminded me of Lewis Carroll's Alice Adventures in Wonderland. Now, there have been many speculations as to what Alice in Wonderland is really about. Many believe that it's an allusion to the use of psychotropic, mind-altering drugs. Many believe that it's an allusion to psychotropic drugs such as LSD and how people begin to hallucinate after taking the drug. There are a number of things here that it can mean, although these claims are unfounded or at least speculation at best. It could be the use of something like magic mushrooms or other hallucinogens because of the nonsensical nature of the movie and the book. As you proceed down this arch of flowers, it's like going towards the Queen of Hearts or the Queen of Love. We know that a woman, her femininity, and in particular her private parts, are often referred to as a garden. And so as we proceed through this gate into this magical garden, we see that it's covered with red roses, often a symbol of love. Lewis Carroll, or Charles Ludwig Dodgson, was born on the 27th of January 1832, but he wrote under the pen name Lewis Carroll. He wrote children's fiction, including Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, amongst many other things. He had a stammer and, as a child, a serious case of whooping cough, and he was described as asymmetric. So he walked with a limp. Some believe it was due to a knee injury in his young age. But it's believed that he was more comfortable around children than adults. It wasn't uncommon for people of this era to have a fascination for children, not necessarily in a sexual way, but just an admiration of their innocence and their youthful beauty. And Lewis Carroll was no different. It was very common in the era for people to send Christmas cards and other notes depicting their children even undressed. In 1856, Dean Henry Liddell arrived at Christchurch, bringing his young family with him. This family would become very close with Carroll over the next few years. And although they had many young children, he was very close with the children, especially the three daughters, Lorena, Edith, and Alice Liddell. Many believe that the book Alice's Adventures in Wonderland are based on the close relationship that he had with Alice, although this was not confirmed. And then something happened between Carroll and the Liddell family that caused them to no longer have a close friendship. Some believe that there was an inappropriate relationship between Carroll and Alice, but all of the children who were spoken to deny that he ever approached them in an inappropriate manner. However, it was clear that Carroll enjoyed spending time with children more than maybe adults. He later, in 1856, took up a new form of art in the form of photography. He became quite an accomplished photographer, even at an amateur level, and although he took over 3,000 images, many of them were destroyed. Only 1,000 or so remain to this day, many of them depicting children in his garden because of the light. But he also took pictures of men and women, adults, children, scenery, and even other artwork. So could Lewis Carroll, as a grown man, with his love for spending time with children, in particular young girls, also be an allusion to what is going on in the house of W.A.P? As you approach the front of the building, passing a large fountain, you cannot help but recognize the resemblance it makes with Hugh Hefner's Playboy Mansion. From the courtyard and the fountain outside to the large front, the windows with the oculus, it's not hard to see that there is a resemblance between the two buildings. So you leave from the garden, and as you pass the fountain, as we see with Hugh Hefner's mansion, and go up to a large fronted building, you're sprayed with fluid from the fountain, and as you approach the front door, you realize water begins to flow down the steps. I'll touch on that more later. As the video begins, you're met with this chanting, "There's some whores in this house." And we know for a fact that the Playboy Mansion is a place full of prostitutes, people who are selling their sexuality. They're characterized by the use of the bunny ears. The rabbit or the hare has been a symbol of fertility for many years. Unlike many other animals, rabbits and hares do not have a period of heat. Their fertility window is open for most of the year. It's even been noted that a rabbit can become pregnant whilst currently pregnant, and not long after giving birth to a litter of babies, the rabbit can be pregnant again. And so when we look at the concept of the hare, or going down the rabbit hole, as we see in Alice in Wonderland, there is an allusion to the female genitalia. The rabbit is the symbol for sexuality, youthful, frolicking, fun and playfulness, and eroticism. Some even suggest that the phrase "down the rabbit hole" alludes actually to sodomy. The hare and the rabbit are a common theme amongst celebrities for sexuality, playfulness, and fertility. As we enter into the W.A.P mansion, Cardi and Meg enter the hallway from opposing sides, and as they come down the hallway, they're met by casts of their body, some of the chest and some of the bottom. I personally believe that the chest is actually Cardi's chest and the bottom is Meg's bottom, because throughout the video you will see later on that these are the parts of the body that they display the most. Meg is intrigued by the bust, and as they come frolicking down the hallway, you will notice on the floor there is what appears to be a black and white zigzag. Black and white is the symbol for duality, a Masonic principle that in light is dark and dark is light, that without one you cannot have the other. To Freemasonry, duality is essential, because without light you would not understand darkness. There needs to be one point of reference in order to create a rating system. So the concept of black and white or duality for rituals, degrees and lectures is crucial to the message. We will see this theme over and over again throughout various music videos, that there is a male and a female, a light and a dark, a good and a bad. These are some images from some of Cardi B's other songs, and we can see the black and white or the checkerboard theme displayed repeatedly. Then we see Meg. She does the V sign with the tongue in between. Most people are aware that this means oral sex. And so again, she's sending that sexual subliminal that this is what she wants. Then subliminally, there's a quick glimpse into one of the many rooms off of the corridor. Although most people maybe will not catch this, in one of the rooms you see a sexual act being performed, but not between two people, but between two tigers mating. And then as you look through the door again, you see a third tiger, suggesting that in this room an orgy is taking place, because you have three people represented by three tigers. Meg and Cardi run up and down the hall and they begin to look in all the different rooms. And they finally come to a door with a handle or a knocker in the form of a snake. Everybody knows by now that the snake or the serpent is representative of the devil. And so the snake rears up and begins to bite them as they stretch their hands out to use the knocker. The next scene, you are in a room that looks like it's full of sand, and there's a pillar in the forefront of the shot. Initially, I assumed that this was an obelisk. To early Egyptians, obelisks were the sign and the shape of the sun god Ra. The sun often represents the true God, according to who you believe is the true God, because of the source of heat and light that it gives to humanity and creation, upon which we are all dependent. By the 5th dynasty, Ra had become so popular he was elevated to the role of state deity. The spirit of the sun god Ra supposedly entered the stone at certain points of the day, and at that time offerings of humans would be made to the sun god. This may explain why in front of the pillar you see a mound and Cardi and Megan lay upon it as though they are being offered up to the sun god Ra. It's believed that some of the victims for adult sacrifice were prisoners, maybe foreigners, but if there were no prisoners available, members of the public, a native population, would be offered up as sacrifices. The pharaohs of the later dynasties switched their obelisk affections to Osiris because of the god story and myth around him. Osiris was the god of the earth, of plants and the food given by the Nile. He was the god of rebirth and the underworld, the last judgment and life or death. It was believed that Osiris's brother Set was jealous of him, and Osiris was killed by his brother Set, locking him in a coffin and sending him down the Nile. Isis was able to recover the body of Osiris. When Isis recovered the body of Osiris and Set found out what she had done, he then took the body again, but this time he tore it into 14 pieces and scattered the pieces throughout Egypt. Isis was able to recover all 13 of the 14 pieces to give Osiris a proper burial. She was only unable to restore one piece of Osiris's body, and that was the penis. Set had thrown the penis into the Nile, where it had allegedly been eaten by fish. Seeing as Isis was unable to recover the last piece of Osiris, she manufactured an artificial organ, and it's from this act that we believe that the obelisk is a phallic symbol. According to the Hebrew Bible, Solomon's temple in 1 Kings chapter 6 and 2 Chronicles chapters 3 and 4 was built by Solomon, and he was aided by a man called Hiram I, or the king of Tyre, who furnished architects, workmen, and cedar timbers for the temple of his ally Solomon at Jerusalem. According to Freemasons, Hiram, or Hiram Abiff, is really Osiris reincarnated, and so the obelisk is the only physical representation of Osiris still in existence. This is how Masons connect their belief system to the world of ancient Egypt. And so wherever Masons erect monuments, they will often also erect obelisks, paying homage to Osiris. The connection to Solomon's temple extends to the concept of pillars, two of which were at the entrance of the temple in Jerusalem, known as Boaz and Joachim. Going back to this image of Cardi and Meg laying on the sand, I also thought that these were Boaz or Joachim. Boaz and Joachim appear in pairs, and this shot only shows one pillar. Boaz and Joachim were two bronze pillars that stood at the entrance of the temple. They were made of bronze or brass. Both bronze and brass are an alloy of copper, one mixed with tin and one mixed with zinc respectively. The copper represents the sun, and the other element represents the moon. Again, we see the concept of duality, where sun often represents the masculine principle and the moon the feminine. This mixture represents the combination of harmony and balance. The pillars were said to be hollow, meaning that people who would go into the temple could leave their bags and store them within the pillars, representing them leaving the baggage of their past behind as they enter into the new life between the two pillars. Between the two pillars was believed to be the tree of life, the third pillar that was made up between the two. The first pillar represented strength, the second pillar represented wisdom, and the third pillar representing harmony between the two. When the candidate would pass between the two of them, he became harmony and entered into the life of spiritual dominance over the physical. The pillars represent a gateway to the sacred space. For example, between the two pillars of Hercules was alleged the entrance into Atlantis. According to Freemasonry, rabbis state that Solomon was the first initiate into the mystery schools. It was believed that the temple was a house of initiation containing many pagan and phallic symbols, including the structure and ornaments that the sanctuary of the Egyptians had used. The left-hand pillar was Boaz. It represented the might or power of earthly man. It was represented by water and the unity resulting from love. The right-hand pillar, or Joachim, represented by fire, resulted in the unity from merely being. It represented the divine man, or things like being firm, upright, and stable. Once again, we see the concept of duality, where the equilibrium of the two opposing forces, fire and water, leads to the house of God, the divine male and female in one, where human and divine come together. In Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, it represents the struggle between men and women. The map for life from humanity to spirituality, the evolution from human or earthly to God, is laid out through the Kabbalistic tree of life. It can also be applied to the two pillars, with the central pillar down the middle. The two pillars represent mercy and severity, the two aspects of human nature polarized against each other. To go up one side of the tree of life is the passive side, mercy within creation. And to go up the other side of the tree of life is the harsh extremities of nature's elements. The central pillar of the tree of life indicates a balance between the principles in nature. The two pillars of mercy and severity symbolize the operatives of the natural of the psyche of an individual. In psychology, this has been referred to as the animus and anima, where the anima is the Kabbalistic neshama or soul, and the animus is the Kabbalistic chia or will. The anima is in contact with the inner world, whereas the animus is in contact with the physical. And according to occult psychology, the animus is the conscious, whereas the anima is the subconscious. The animus is the soul of a woman. The anima is the soul of a man. In Oriental settings, the anima and animus are equivalent to yin and yang, the principles of dark and light. The interplay of yin and yang leads to the mystical Tao. In Kabbalah, this is the Yehidah or one self, and it is seated at the top of the tree of life, sphere of limitless light revealed. The Yehidah is the pure essence of the soul, mind and body. It is the life that abides in light. It is the spirit of Tao and the middle way or path to harmony. As we see here with the Washington Monument, there is a pyramid shape which is missing from the top of the pillar within this music video. But it becomes apparent that there is the yin and the yang, the natural and the earthly versus the spiritual, represented by the duality of how Meg and Cardi lie in a similar fashion. They wear the same outfit, just in different colors. They are surrounded by serpents, and there are many things here that we can talk about. One of the things that you will notice about obelisks or other Masonic monuments is they may place a pool of water in front of them. These are reflecting pools designed to highlight the concept of as above, so below. The way Cardi and Meg lie in certain angles, you see one is up and one is down. Pillars are fundamental for the concept of initiation or transformation. And we have seen many pillars, according even to Freemasons, hidden within various movies, music videos, and pictures. From Harry Potter to music videos, even the Twin Towers that after 2001 were replaced by the third and a single tower. Even Cardi B herself has been seen ascending between two pillars towards light. And who can forget the infamous 2009 VMA performance by Lady Gaga? As she's dressed in white and she sings her famous song Paparazzi, she collapses to the floor. Initially, people think this is just for dramatic effect, and as she looks down, it becomes apparent that she appears to be bleeding, the red and white being a symbol of sacrifice. She is then surrounded by 1,000 points of light, hoisted into the air, up between the two pillars towards the Luciferian light between them. And as she is raised into the air and ascends from the earth to the spiritual, she assumes the pose of the goat of Mendes or the Baphomet. Again, one hand up and one hand down, symbolizing as above, so below. So if this is really two pillars, where is the second pillar? And as I stared at this image, I realized the second pillar had been there the entire time. The scripture tells us that when a demon is cast out of a person, it wanders in a dry and weary place. And when it finds no place to rest, it realizes that its home has been cleaned and swept. And when the demon returns, it will try to bring with it 7 more spirits. Although Satan is known as the devil, demons are often referred to as devils as well. So could Cardi and Meg lying in a sea of serpents be a sign of demonic possession or involvement? We know that in the 60s, Aleister Crowley coined or made popular the concept of sex with magic. This is not new. Cults for millennia have used orgies and various sexual practices to evoke their gods. And it's worth noting here that in tarot, one of the main cards is the High Priestess, known as the Popess or Papacia. The Popess is the second trump card in most traditional tarot decks. It is used in divination. She wears a papal crown and is believed to be related to the legend of Pope Joan, who was disguised as a man to become the first pope. The Italian Catholics see her as figuratively the mother of the church, as Mary, the mother of God or the mother of heaven. In the Rider-Waite tarot deck, she's depicted between Boaz and Joachim holding the Torah, or the universal law. She has the moon at her feet and is often seen as the Virgin Mary, Isis, or the Bride of Christ. In the Swiss Trocas decks, she is called Junon or Juno, the Roman Queen of God. She is associated with the Shekinah, or the female indwelling presence of the divine. She sits in front of a veil and is covered in a veil, signifying that she holds mysteries. She holds the Torah, or the divine and universal law of God, but she does not look at it. She looks straight ahead, signifying that she does not need to consult the law of God because she already knows everything. Behind the veil is a sea. In the scripture, the sea represents a multitude of people and is often catastrophic. It represents a place of sin or death. And there is the sand and the moon at her feet. The two sisters, marked by the 2 Roman numerals, bring life into the world and invite you, the living, into esoteric mystery. This card represents secrets, mysteries of the future yet to be unraveled. And although in the tarot deck of Marseille, she wears a blue cape with a red robe, this is in contrast and opposition to the Pope, who usually wears a red cape with a blue robe. The card in its upward form is seen as a positive symbol, but when the card is facing downwards, it represents presumption, conceit, the use of information for questionable means, and traps set by intelligent women. The La Papissa card in the Visconti Sforza tarot deck has been identified as Sister Manfreda, who was elected to Pope by the heretical sect of Lombardy. The sect believed that Sister Manfreda was the incarnate of the Holy Spirit, and that she was to introduce a new age of the Spirit. The leader of the sect died in 1281, and her followers believed that she was the incarnate of the Holy Spirit who would return to earth on the Feast of Pentecost in the year 1300. This would end the line of male popes and begin the lineage of female popes. We see here that we have the elevation of the feminine principle and the desire for the man to be destroyed in order to give prominence and power to women, the Pope being the single figure of the Christian faith, a male being usurped by the feminine. It is noted that the high priestess or Popess's headdress relates to the Egyptian goddess Hathor. Hathor was the goddess of the sky, women and fertility and love. Her name means the estate or the house of Horus. Her principal animal is the cow, and she is associated with motherhood, as cows suckle their young and provide milk and dairy products for humanity. She is seen as the wife and the mother of Horus, the sun god Ra. She is seen as the eye of Ra. She is his female counterpart and part of his entourage. She was represented or referred to as the Golden One, and her rays were believed to illuminate the whole earth. The Eye of Ra, which is the feminine personification of Ra's power, was represented by a disc and is also thought to be the womb through which Ra was born, according to the cycles of the sun throughout the day. The Eye of Ra, often depicted as a sun disk, protected Ra from his enemies. It was also represented by the uraeus, or the rearing cobras. The Eye of Ra is sometimes represented by a set of four cobras, known as Hathor of the Four Faces, each of them facing in a different direction, indicating that Ra is completely protected on all sides. Ra would send Hathor to protect him against his human enemies who would plot against him. What is interesting about Hathor is she would often be depicted with another goddess known as Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar's name can mean Lady of the Offerings or Satisfied Lady, Lady of Contentment or Lady of the Vulva. She was believed to be the female counterpart of the god Atum. It was believed that with Atum all by himself he was able to create all of creation. Through the act of masturbation, he was able to produce all of life. And Nebuchadnezzar represents the hand with which he did this. She is almost like the Eye of Ra, the female counterpart and extension of the masculine principle. And although she was often associated with Hathor, she was of little significance. Although she may not have been a major goddess within ancient Egypt, she was often seen fused with Hathor. And it's very interesting how in this scene, Cardi and Meg are literally fused at the head. And as they caress each other, and as they seem to be in a moment of eroticism, one cannot help wonder if they are using sex magic to divine spirit, as they are shaping themselves into a third pillar, and also the oval shape that may represent the vulva. Hathor represented two aspects of goddess status, from violent and dangerous to passions of love. At times Hathor was uncontrollable, and she would have to be appeased. And through the acts of merrymaking, burning of incense, flowers, and dancing, it was believed that the fury of Hathor could be appeased. She was called the mistress of music dance, garlands, myrrh, and even drunkenness. Which is interesting because at one point in the song, Cardi says, "I need a Henny drinker, I need a weed smoker." And obviously the entire video has energetic dancing and people merrymaking and engaging in sexual acts. It was believed that on one occasion when Hathor went to destroy mankind, she was tricked into drinking beer that had been dyed red. She assumed it was blood, and then she was appeased and able to be taken back to her male counterpart. Every year when the Nile would flood, the water, now reddened with sediment, resembled blood and reminded the Egyptians of this account where she had to be appeased. And so, at the flooding of the Nile, festivities would ensue of drinking and music, dance, in an attempt to appease the destruction of mankind from Hathor. So here where we see Beyonce posing for Instagram wearing a cow print outfit, it is clear that she is alluding to Hathor, but also is she telling her fans and followers that she is the high priest of the music industry, the one who cannot be challenged, the one who trumps all other female artists. That is for you to decide. But it is clear that these celebrities and people in the music industry are aware of the ancient Egyptian belief systems, and to some degree they pay homage to them. Another aspect of this scene is the concept of sand representing time, and a comment that I believe Beyonce herself has made is the idea of demon time. Demon time is any time past midnight, some say 11 o'clock, where people become debaucherous. They begin to strip, they begin to dance, they begin to sell sexual acts on Instagram and OnlyFans Live. It is a time where people say or do anything. It is usually after 12 o'clock. But one of the most common understandings of demon time was commonly known as the witching hour, where it was believed witches and practitioners of magic would begin to cast spells around 3 a.m. This is where we get the concept of demonic possessions and exorcisms from. So when Cardi and Megan are lying in the sand surrounded by snakes or demons, is this actually a representation of them divining various spirits? The music video then progresses into the heart of the building itself. According to the scripture, the heart is synonymous with the soul, our thoughts, will, and emotion, the multiple layers of the mind. Initially, I just assumed that this was another colorful scene, some energetic dancing. The color scheme seems strange, but the whole video is vibrant. But as I went out, I began to notice this color combination everywhere. Had it been there the whole time, and now I was just becoming aware of it? Or was it actually symbolic of something? There were a number of meanings for the colors green and purple, earth and wisdom, natural and spiritual, masculine and feminine. But one of the most interesting definitions that I came across, again thanks to Urban Dictionary, is the concept of green and purple reflecting a strong friendship between two people that are very close to each other but are not the same gender. We know recently with this situation where Meg got into an altercation allegedly with Tory Lanez, some people were asserting that he found out something about her that he was not pleased about. Now, I'm not going to elaborate on what that is. You can draw your own conclusions. But it is very interesting that although Meg is a female, she identifies herself as a male horse, in that she calls herself a stallion. It says here that the two people are very different, which makes them attracted to each other in every way. The color green is the guy and the purple is the lady. It is used when they are very close and they would do anything for each other or give anything to be with each other at any time. This is the heart of the whole song. This is about the merging of the masculine and the feminine principle, the breakdown of traditional gender roles, and the promotion of sexual confusion. Because although the song lyrics suggest an interaction between a man and a woman, the entire video actually has no men. Apart from the phallic symbol of the pillar in the room with the sand, and the tigers who are mating at the beginning of the video, there are actually no males. The only male represented in human form in this video is Meg, who calls herself a stallion. We know that the goal is to spread a certain culture to young people, and I found this very interesting article in Teen Vogue where two YouTubers decided that they wanted to recreate the look from the video, this particular scene. As you can see here, one is a man and one is a woman, but both are emulating Cardi and Meg, who are both female. It's interesting that Teen Vogue, a magazine geared towards young people, would put such an image in its publication, bearing in mind the explicit nature of the song. Now, explicit content in material geared towards young people is not new. For decades, teen magazines have incorporated things like position of the month and very graphic conversations about sex. So we can no longer be surprised at anything we see in these magazines. But it's very clear that there is an agenda to promote the feminization of men and the sexual confusion between the genders. Here is another person who decided they wanted to recreate the look from one of the later scenes we are about to discuss. And she went to great lengths to construct thrones and to create this outfit. For a magazine geared towards young people, it's highly sexualized. We recently had the scandal with the Netflix production Cuties. Although it's presented as a coming-of-age movie where the main character Amy, coming from a devout Muslim background, becomes enamored with a dance troupe of her peers. The idea was supposed to explain and to expose the dangers of social media and the sexualization of young people. But there was a major backlash on Netflix where they've lost millions, many subscriptions and a lot of money, because people became outraged at the sexual nature of the outfits and the dance moves. For a movie that was supposed to highlight the dangers of child sexual exploitation, many young people were exploited in the making of this movie. But what I find interesting, and I wouldn't go so far as to say coincidental, although W.A.P and Cuties were released around a similar time, there was a striking resemblance between some of the dance moves and poses in both the film and the music video. There have been a plethora of people doing W.A.P challenges, and we even remember how a US teacher remixed the song W.A.P to encourage her online students to study during the time of the pandemic. Although her intentions may be good, this will drive many young people to check out the original song, which has lyrics that are not appropriate for a young person. Why is this significant? To answer this question, we have to go to the late 1940s, to a man named Robert Mueller. Robert Mueller lived on the border between France and Germany as a French citizen. He remembers the turmoil of the Second World War, having been a prisoner and even escaping from prison. During the war, he became a member of the French resistance, and after seeing the horrors of war and trying to save a group of captured German soldiers unsuccessfully, his life was changed after the war, and he began to work on a theory for peace. When he returned home, he earned a doctorate in law, and he entered an essay competition on how to govern the world, the prize of which was an internship at the newly created United Nations. There he devoted the next 40 years of his life working behind the scenes, trying to create a better world, a better environment, better economics, and global peace. He was instrumental in the founding of many multilateral bodies, including the UN Development Programme, the World Food Programme, the United Nations Population Fund, and the World Youth Assembly. He rose through the ranks of the UN to the official position of Assistant Secretary General and served under 3 Secretary Generals. He also created the World Core Curriculum, and that earned him the UNESCO Prize for Peace Education in 1989. It is believed that Mueller was inspired by Alice Bailey. Alice and her husband founded what was originally called Lucifer's Trust, but then became incorporated as the Lucis Trust. Alice and her husband were students of Helena Blavatsky and a student of the doctrines of Theosophy, a study that was popularized by Aleister Crowley, one of the most infamous occultists. Blavatsky and others believed that the traditional view of Lucifer as an antagonist was incorrect, but rather that he was one of the solar angels, an advanced being who through Theosophy descended from Venus to Earth eons ago and brought new knowledge to the primitive animal man. In the Theosophical perspective, the descent of the solar angels was not a fall into sin or disgrace, but rather an act of sacrifice, as is suggested in the name Lucifer, which means light bearer. The Lucis Trust is housed within the United Nations, and many of the plans for global peace, global education, and oneness across humanity are consistent with Mueller's own desires. He stated that one of his goals is to steer children towards global citizenship, earth-centered beliefs, socialist values, and the collective mindset, which is becoming a requirement for the 21st century workforce. The Lucis Trust has headquarters in New York City, London, and Geneva, and is associated with blogs such as World Goodwill, and focuses on defining new sustainable development goals for humanity. Theosophy, which was primarily created by Helena Blavatsky, combines Neoplatonism and Asian religions such as Hinduism and Buddhism. Blavatsky theorized that theosophy teaches that there is an ancient and secretive brotherhood of spiritual adepts known as masters, who, although are found across the world, are centered in Tibet. She believed that she channeled the spirit of the Tibetan, and Alice Bailey was one of her avid followers and students. Theosophists believe that they are trying to revive the teachings of the ancient masters. In reviving this ancient knowledge and religions once found across the world, there will be an eclipse of the current world religion. Theosophy believes in the reincarnation of the soul, which is liberated upon the physical death of the body during the process of karma. It promotes the values of the universal brotherhood, social improvement, although it does not stipulate particular ethical code. The goal and the great architect of Freemasonry is Lucifer. For people who are into the occult, Freemasonry, and the esoteric, Lucifer is the true light bearer. He is seen as the hero of the piece. In the Garden of Eden, when the serpent asked Eve, "Did God really say the day you eat of the tree you will die?" The implication was that God was hiding something that man deserved to know. And Satan twisted what God had said in order to imply that he meant only natural death. So when Eve ate of the fruit of the tree and saw that nothing happened to her, she then offered the fruit to Adam, and the scripture says their eyes were open. God did not specify the kind of death man would receive when he ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Their eyes being open signifies spiritual death, and after spiritual death, physical death follows. This is why in Christianity you are required to be born again. Although all are born of the natural and the flesh, to inherit eternal life, you must be born of the Spirit of God. So to people who are in the occult, Lucifer was the truth teller. He was the light bringer. He was the one who freed man from the shackles that God had placed upon them through knowledge. So when globalist Robert Mueller speaks of a global education program, one world government and systems, we can see how this agenda is playing out. There are many avenues that we can take, but we will look at just one thing that Robert Mueller had to say. He stated, "As long as the child breathes the poison air of nationalism, education in world-mindedness can produce only rather precarious results. As we have pointed out, it is frequently the family that infects the child with extreme nationalism. The school should therefore use the means described earlier to combat family attitudes that favor jingoism." Jingoism, or patriotism, nationalism, and divided cultural groups. This coincides with the teachings of Alice Bailey's 10-step plan to bring about the New World Order. Let's see if any of these seem familiar. Take God and prayer out of the education system. Reduce parental control and authority over your own children. Destroy the traditional Christian family structure. If sex is free, make abortion legal and easy. Make divorce easy and legal. Free people from the concept of marriage for life. Make homosexuality an alternative lifestyle choice. Debase art and make it run mad. Use the media to promote and change mindsets. Create an interfaith movement. And get governments to make all of these things laws. If we go onto the Lucis Trust Facebook page, there is something called the Day of Invocation, a festival of humanity, where it is believed that through meditation and spirituality, all of humanity can be brought together. The festival marks the culmination of the work of the Buddha, focalized through Christ and expressed through humanity. This day is marked with yogic activity and various forms of meditation, and is designed to contact spirit beings from another realm. There is a great emphasis on light, love, and power. And although it seems that love would be something beneficial, something we should strive for, the love of the New Age is contrary to the love of God. It is the love of the world. It is the love of the spiritual things, excluding God and Christ the Messiah. Although they speak of Christ consciousness, this is not the God of the Bible and his Son. There is a reverence of light and love allegedly from the heart of God that will stream down into the hearts of men, and the coming of the one who is to return from where he is to earth. This is Christ consciousness, but it is not being born again. And so we can see from the teachings of Alice Bailey, Blavatsky, how people who ascribe to their philosophy incorporate New Age principles, practices, and legislation into every aspect of human life, and the desire is to spread these principles globally. So let us go back to some of the other points that were made by Alice Bailey. Number 2 says, reduce parental authority over children. We see that there is an adultification of young people, where young people are given ever increasing rights, young people are given ever increasing privileges. The concept of divorcing your own parents is a reality, and the sexualization of children is becoming more and more apparent. And if you don't believe me, these are clips from Dance Mum, taken about a month ago. They are allegedly dancing to the clean version of W.A.P. But even with the profanity removed, the song is still debased. As Alice Bailey proposed, debase all forms of media and use the media to change the culture. And maybe I'm mistaken, but I think I've seen these outfits somewhere before. With the advent of now social media, trends can go global in a matter of minutes. Anywhere with a phone, a computer, and an internet connection, themes and information, images and trends can be transported all over the globe instantaneously. This is the W.A.P challenge, a dance routine choreographed by one man, has now been adopted and is going viral all over social media. Men and women engaging in this dance routine. And if you notice in this one, the grandmother says, if you notice in this last one, the grandmother is so appalled by the dance routine that she tries to stop the young person from actually completing the dance routine, to the point where she is actually dragged off. Alice Bailey said that there is no point trying to change the older people because they are already set in their ways. If you want to change society, you have to attack the youth. So if we want to incorporate esoteric, Freemasonic, and occultic practices into our everyday media, where do we get these dance routines from? Maybe some alleged secret footage of temple prostitutes dancing at the lodge may give us some clues. As we continue in the music video for W.A.P, then there is the entrance of Kylie Jenner. She is adorned in a gown with a long robe or train at the back, divided into two pieces. Some may suggest that having her back exposed would be too much, but I personally feel like they look like wings. As we've already stated, for people who are into Freemasonry and into the occult, Lucifer is the good guy, descending from the planet Venus that we know travels through the sky, forming a 5-point star. An allusion to Lucifer and his wings would make perfect sense. Unlike Cardi and Meghan, who enter the shot in a block feminine light color, Kylie Jenner immediately enters bearing the leopard print. As she comes down the hallway lined with pillars, standing in one of the doorways is a leopard. As you look down the dark corridor, there are 3 flashes of the light, as if flashes of lightning. And we know that in Luke 10:18 it says, "And Jesus said, and he said unto them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven." Lightning has been one of the many common symbols used for Satan. Kylie enters one of the rooms, and although we do not see her in the room, we then find Cardi standing beside what looks like an elevator in the same room. So there are many things that we can note here. Number 1, how she stands beside an elevator. The elevator has commonly been associated with descending into the pits of hell. Stairways lead to heaven, but elevators lead to hell. So when Cardi stands on these steps, is she indicating that she stands at the gateway to hell? Going back to the Egyptian goddess of Hathor, one of Hathor's many roles was to guide spirits into the afterlife. So could Kadi standing beside the elevator be indicative of her role in ushering people into the afterlife, in particular down to hell? One of the most notable things about this room and Kadi is the obvious outfit change. Most people by now have heard of the concept of MK Ultra, a 1950s program where American CIA agents feared that the Soviets would be able to use mind control to extract secrets from captured prisoners. Initially, the goal was simply to prevent soldiers and captured prisoners of war from revealing secrets, but it quickly evolved into an entire mind control program where the concept of brainwashing and rewriting a person's mind came into fruition. The CIA project was designed to develop interrogation techniques and officially started in 1953. It was allegedly cancelled in 1973 in the wake of the Watergate scandal. Many of the techniques used to influence mind control were illegal, and the mental state of the subjects were altered through the use of drugs, psychoactive drugs, electric shock treatment, hypnosis, sensory deprivation and isolation, and this included abuses that were verbal, physical, and even sexual, along with torture. In 2018, declassified documents were disclosed that 6 dogs had been implanted with brain implants, and through the use of remote controls, these dogs could be stopped, caused to run, and even turn. This relates very closely to the Neuralink that Elon Musk recently has revealed. They will publish it and promote it as a tool and a technique to help people who have lost limbs and have some form of disability where nerve damage has occurred. But if we go to Revelation 13, where it says he causes both small and great to take the mark, people who have this chip may eventually be controlled, believing that the thoughts that they have are their own. There are a number of aspects of the MK Ultra program, over 100 separate projects underneath this one umbrella term. The goal of Project Monarch, otherwise known as beta or sex kitten programming, is to make the subject devoid of any inhibitions. Beta programming relates to the base instinct and brainwave of the primal instinct, and often manifests in the form of a cat-like alter. The monarch butterfly is often used as a symbol for this programming because in the process of creating an alternate personality, the person is metamorphosized from their primal personality state to various other forms and states. One way to cause a person to create an alternate personality is through electric shock treatments, where the person experiences feelings of lightheadedness, or they may feel like they are floating or fluttering like a butterfly. In occult symbolism, the butterfly can also be a representation for the word psyche, which is soul and also butterfly. From the belief system that the soul becomes a butterfly searching for a new reincarnate form. It is believed that the mind has a conscious and a subconscious part. The subconscious mind is like the programs running in the background, and they house your beliefs, your emotions, your imagination, intuition, and suppressed past traumas, as well as long-term memories. Our conscious mind is responsible for logical thinking, critical thinking at the time, and is active. It is mainly to do with the short-term memory. Dissociation is a coping mechanism for trauma. When we go through traumatic experiences, the conscious mind cannot handle it, and it is said to take flight, or in effect, the dominant personality goes to sleep. This leaves the subconscious mind completely exposed to suggestion. Mind control can be accelerated by drug use and also is affected by hypnosis and suggestion. It is believed that the goal here is to expose the subconscious mind to suggestion, to break it into various parts known as alter egos or alters, and to connect each of the alters with a trigger that can be used to summon each alternate personality when needed. The victim or survivor would be known as a slave, and the person who initiates the triggering of each alternate personality would be known as the programmer or their handler. To the slave, the programmer is seen as a master or a god. And women are more susceptible to dissociation because of their high tolerance for pain and their emotional state. Subjects are mainly used for prostitution and pornography, and the presidential class of sex slave is deemed to be the highest form of sex slave. It is believed that Marilyn Monroe was the first presidential sex slave, and this may explain why many singers and artists feel the need to pay homage to her in various forms. It is believed that the best time to create a dissociated personality is during childhood. From the womb to around the age of 6, if children undergo trauma, there is an increased chance of them developing dissociative identity disorder, formerly known as multiple personality disorders. As adults, a person who experiences extreme or intense or acute trauma may only experience post-traumatic stress disorder. It is my belief that this is why many of the people who are in the entertainment industry have stories of coming from challenging backgrounds. I personally believe that they were deliberately handpicked and selected because the framework and foundation for trauma-based mind control was already established as a result of them coming from childhood trauma. Whether that was various forms of physical or sexual abuse, or children who came from the care system. As we've seen in previous videos discussing the concept of adverse childhood experiences or ACEs, there are various forms of abuse, neglect, or environmental factors that can negatively impact the development of a healthy mental state. So children who come from adverse childhood experiences are more susceptible to programming, various forms of abuse and torture because their will and free will has already been eroded through years of childhood abuse. They become the perfect candidate for various forms of mind control, including trauma-based mind control, suggestions through hypnosis, and even drug or alcohol addiction. As I've said before, the goal of the beta sex kitten is to be completely uninhibited to engage in various forms of sexual activity. But one of the easiest forms of mind control is basic repetition and various emotional abuses on a day-to-day basis that are embedded in the subconscious and then manifest as reality. What we will also notice about her hairstyle is although it forms a chain, it is a chain of circles. A single circle can represent God or divinity, but when two circles overlap, where the circumference of one circle touches the central point of the other, what is formed is a sacred geometric shape known as the Vesica Piscis. The Vesica Piscis is part of sacred geometry. It reflects God replicating himself, and the spiritual and the earthly coming together as one. The area created between the two circles is known by many names, including the womb of the universe, and can represent the divine feminine principle or the opening to the birth canal. You may remember earlier when we spoke about obelisks, you will notice that the Washington Monument sits between two overlapping circles. This is a highly sexual sign, where the masculine phallic principle is penetrating or inserted in the feminine principle. This is reminiscent of the Freemasonic compass and set square, where the compass represents the male principle coming together with the female principle. Sacred geometry is part of all walks of life. Across creation, you will see patterns, namely the Fibonacci pattern, and it is the basis, the simple circle, for the building blocks of all sacred geometry. The simple circle represents eternity and the Godhead or the divine. Then we have the overlapping of two circles known as the Vesica Pisces, and within the two circles you can find a number of sacred numbers, namely the square root of 3, 2 and 5. Like pi, the square root of 2, 3 and 5 are numbers that go on for eternity without repetition. Therefore, they are divine numbers that represent eternity. With the addition of horizontal and vertical lines, various other shapes are created, like the equilateral triangle and the pentagram and hexagram. If a third circle is added to the Vesica Pisces, this shape becomes the triquetra, with 3 Vesica Pisces within it. This symbol is often used for the Trinity, but it is not the Trinity of the Father, Son and Holy Spirit. It is the divine feminine Trinity of the Mother, the Daughter and the Crone. We have the bringing together of the natural and the spiritual, principles of life, and a very common occult symbol known as the flower of life, which has been found in civilizations all over the world.
Okay guys, so I have seen a lot of people, right, that nowadays female rappers only, and now that Jermaine Dupri bring it up, now I'm gonna say something about it, right? First of all, I rap about pussy because she's my best friend, you know what I'm saying? And second of all, it's because it seems like that's what people want to hear. I ain't even gonna front, because let me tell you something. When I did Be Careful, people was talking mad in the beginning, like, what is this? This is not what I expected. I expected this, I expected that. So it's like, if that's what people ain't trying to hear, then alright, then I'm gonna start rapping again. And second of all, there's a lot of female rappers that be rapping their ass off and don't be talking about their and don't be talking about, you know, getting down and dirty, and y'all don't be supporting them. Y'all don't be supporting them, and they be mad dope. These bloggers don't support them. They don't give them the recognition. So don't blame that shit on us when y'all not the one that's supporting them.
The flower of light has 6-fold symmetry like a hexagon, and the perfect form, proportion and harmony of the flower of light has been known by philosophers, architects and artists around the world. Pagans consider it to be sacred, and it contains ancient religious values depicting the fundamental forms of space and time. This ancient symbol has held great importance to many civilizations and people throughout history. It has been found in manuscripts, temples, and throughout cultures around the world, and is even used in meditation. 7 circles in a hexagonal formation make up a shape known as the seed of life. The 7 circles represent the 7 days of creation. From the flower of life can be derived a 13-circle shape known as the fruit of life. The fruit of life is described as having the blueprint of the universe, containing the basis for the design of every atom, molecular structure, life form, and everything within existence. The fruit of life gives rise to the Metatron's cube. And within the Metatron's cube are 5 platonic solids or shapes. All 5 of these platonic shapes can be overlapped within the Metatron's cube. Therefore, the Metatron's cube is symbolic of the whole of creation. 4 of the elements were seen as archetypal patterns for earth, air or wind, and fire, as well as water. Maybe you've heard that group before. The 5th was believed to represent the life force or spirit. The 5 structures are found in minerals, in organic life, sound and music, and even language. It was also considered a holy glyph used to ward off evil spirits. And from this shape we can derive the Kabbalistic tree of life. As we can see here, the shape is heavily influenced by the number 6 or 6-sided shapes. And this makes sense when we look at Cardi B's earrings that are in the shape of a hexagram. The hexagram represents the 6 days of creation. According to the biblical account, 6 is the number of man. The Tree of Life is an esoteric symbol within Jewish mysticism known as the Kabbalah. It was originally oral tradition and is recommended that the true proportions of the tree are to be derived from the model based on the well-known Vesica Pisces, where the center of each circle touches the circumference of the next circle. Each circle of the Tree of Life is known as a Sephirah, and it is divided into 3 columns. A Sephirah means emanation, 10 attributes or emanations of Kabbalah, through which the One Self or the Infinite reveals himself and continuously creates in the physical and the spiritual or the metaphysical realm. The lines represent the concepts between the different spheres, and they are symbolic of the requirements to go from one Sephirah to another. The nodes can be associated with gods, angels, planetary bodies, and signs of the zodiac. And when the Tree of Life is incorporated into the Flower of Life, it is also possible to see the yogic chakras, or the 7 aspects of the chakra system. Collectively, the Sephirah and the paths are known as the 32 paths of wisdom. Each of the 22 paths can be connected to one of the Hebrew letters, and also one of the 22 major arcane trump cards of a standard tarot deck. Again, we have the allusion to the Popes or the Papacy High Priestess tarot card, who is also connected to Hathor. In addition to the yogic chakras, the Tree of Life is divided into 3 pillars of severity, mercy, and equilibrium. The outer pillars symbolize polarity of the energies, similar to those found in the Eastern concept of yin and yang. The pillar of mercy is positive and a brighter force. The pillar of severity in turn is negative, is static, passive, and destructive. The 3 pillars bring about equilibrium and can be equated to the Sushumna, the Idna, and Pingala nadis that run up the spine. In Sanskrit, the word chakra means plexus, wheel, or vortex. It refers to a number of centers in the subtle anatomy of the human being. Each center corresponds to a different level of consciousness, of which there are 6. The lowest one being the Muladhara. In Kundalini Yoga, Kundalini Shakti is a primordial cosmic energy known as the serpent power, It is the fundamental life force and at the same time the supreme spiritual energy, usually lying dormant and coiled 3.5 times round the Muladhara chakra at the base of the subtle spine. In Tantra Yoga, Kundalini is an aspect of Shakti, divine female energy, and is the inseparable lover of Shiva. Upon awakening the Kundalini, you are opened up to the cosmic non-personal dimension of energy and a spiritual realization that results from the transformation that it produces. Kundalini Shakti is seen as the universal sacred power, even though it's connected to a finite physical body. Through a set of practices known as kriyas, like meditation, mantras, breathing exercises, and certain postures, your goal is to connect with yourself and your consciousness. When you experience the awakening of the Kundalini, you are basically awakening your own awareness and consciousness. The goal of this practice is not only to allow the practitioner to communicate with God, but to also experience the feelings of God in the mind. Through raising one's consciousness, they can become one with God. So once again, we see the connection between ancient Egypt, various mystical practices, Jewish mysticism, all intertwined with the concept of the serpent. As stated earlier, within the flower of light, we also can see the six-pointed star and various references to the number 6. It's also worth noting that in ancient times it was believed that Saturn was the furthest planet from the Sun. If the Sun represented good and God, Saturn represented the devil and evil, the darkest and coldest planetary body. On the pole of Saturn, there is a hexagon. With the addition of 3 lines, a hexagon becomes a cube. So the square and the cube are also symbols for Saturn. It is because of Saturn that judges wear black robes, or that we wear a wedding ring, in reference to the rings of Saturn. It is why when we graduate from university, we wear a black square upon our heads. And so we see sacred geometry, the concept of the flower of light, what is formerly known as the Star of David, and the Tree of Life, encapsulated in one symbol, which is the hexagon. So we return to the room and we see Kadi is there in an outfit bearing her chest. Going back to the concept of Hathor, she is one of the mother goddesses, seen of sustaining and giving of life. She is the mother of many of the deities, symbolized by the nurturing of the breast. Again, Hathor was often depicted as a cow, and cows suckle their young and provide milk for humanity. Then we see an interesting bit where Kadi sits on a chair opposite a mirror. Again, this could have multiple layers of meaning and uses. Firstly, we have to remember that the song is about prostitutes in a house. One aspect of the mind control MK Ultra program was known as Operation Midnight Climax. Safe houses set up in San Francisco had prostitutes who were paid by the CIA to lure clients back to the safe houses. Unknowingly, they were given various substances including LSD, and there were mirrors in the room. They would be recorded, and the behavior of the participants, how they tripped out, would be recorded and analyzed later. And sometimes the video footage was used as sexual blackmail. Recently, Jaguar Wright came out exposing many secrets of the industry. explaining and exposing various things that she has witnessed and heard as an entertainer. She made a comment where she encouraged young female artists not to take drinks from people and to basically remain sober at all times. Although she was talking about sexual exploitation of artists, where they are unwittingly plied with alcohol and drugs and then taken advantage of, there has always been a long rumor that many artists in the music industry perform and produce for their label because they are being blackmailed. After having been drugged and engaging in activities that they do not want people to know about, footage is presented to them with which they are blackmailed. Could it be that this room where Cardi sits opposite the mirror is an allusion to the CIA operation? Or could it be an allusion to the fact that she has been through some form of mind control, and as she looks at herself in the mirror, the reflection represents an alternate personality that has been created? In one of the verses, Cardi says, "I don't want to spit, I want to gulp. I want to gag, I want to choke. I want you to touch that little dangly thing that swings at the back of my throat." And then she goes on to say, "I spit on his mic and now he's trying to sign me." Could this be an allusion to her engaging in various sexual activities with members of the music industry in order to gain a record contract? As Cardi rears her head back, we see a reference to the serpent once again. Is this an allusion to demonic possession? That the Kundalini spirit has risen from the base of the spine? Whereas before she was surrounded by these spirits, now she is fully possessed with them inside of her. It is also worth noting that going back to the tarot card of the Popes and how it connects to the ancient Egyptian goddess Hathor, the Popes card is for divination, or the conjuring of spirits or devils, and Hathor can be represented, amongst other things, with a mirror. Time and time again, we see Cardi B representing this ancient goddess, from the lion or cat-like figure to the serpent or Uraeus, and even with the mirror. And the animal theme continues with Meg, who is now in a black and white room. By now we are familiar with the concept of the black and white representing duality, and the animal figure or the animal print representing beta sex kitten programming. If we look into the background, we see that there are two pillars on the left and the right, with an arched doorway in between. And as Meg sits on the corner of the raised flower bed, we notice that her position looks strangely familiar. Once again, we have the drawing of attention to the feminine principle, which is the area between her legs. And subliminally, we can see the compass and set square in the way she sits on the corner of the plinth. The background resembles eyes because of the print of the paper. And if we zoom in, we can see discreetly the subliminal positioning of the goat of Mendes or the Baphomet's head. You see the two pillars with the arch in between, which very much resembles some of the internal rooms at the lodge. It becomes apparent that the temple prostitute dancing is going mainstream with every video. The next scene we see Meg and Cardi dancing with 6 other women. Again, we have an allusion to the number 6, which is the number of man. In the scenery, it appears that heaven and earth, or earth, wind and fire and water, have been brought together, the 4 elements together as one. And no music video would be complete without an allusion to blasphemy, because although they are standing in water and the song is about wet, they are made to appear to be walking on water, which is blasphemous against Jesus Christ. Time and time again, we see celebrities blaspheming Christ, assuming the Christ pose, appearing on crosses. And for people to accept the Luciferian light, they first have to reject Christ as the light of the world. They do this through mockery. And if we remember Alice Bailey's 10 steps to a new world order, the Judeo-Christian principles and family have to be eroded. People have to turn away from Christ in order to receive Luciferian light. It is this rejection of Christ that we get the peace symbol, where people who practice the occult are given a cross. The cross is inverted and the arms are broken downwards. The symbol is then encapsulated with a circle, signifying that through the New Age and through the occult, peace will be accomplished, and not through the peace that Christ promised. We then go into the hallway again, and we are met by a figure who stands in a doorway. Once again, you have the dualistic nature of black and white, this time more closer to a checkerboard. And the individual is swinging an umbrella indoors. Splashes of water flash off of the umbrella, and as she rears the umbrella back, we can see that the inside of the umbrella is white. In many ancient cultures, umbrellas and parasols hold different significant meanings. To ancient Greece, it was a symbol of inferiority and subservience. And in the Orient, it was a symbol of austerity. But one of the most interesting depictions of a goddess with an umbrella in Buddhism, the goddess with the white umbrella, known as Ushnisha Sitapatra, is one of the most powerful female deities, and she manifests with 1,000 heads, arms and legs, each of the palms and the soles of her feet having eyes. In her main arm she holds a white umbrella, and in the other arms she brandishes various weapons that she uses to fight, along with trampling the enemies of spiritual attainments such as anger, greed and delusions. The sun, being the symbol of ultimate truth, would kill anybody who stands directly in its presence. So the umbrella of protection allows the rays of truth and pure wisdom to fall upon it, and as it goes down, the spindles of the umbrella gradually permeates the person holding the umbrella. In the image above, she is preceded by 3 enlightened beings who protect those on the path of Buddhahood. And above her is a small image of Buddha Shakyamuni in his form as Lord of Nagas, or serpent divinities. Once again, we see a reference to serpent spirits, serpent power, just like the Kundalini and the concept of divination. Under her feet are the demons. The demons are a sense of bad qualities within all living beings that hinder the path to Buddhahood such as greed, hatred, and pride. According to Buddhists, there's no such thing as absolute evil. Buddhists have compassion for all beings, including what we would consider to be demons. They believe that demonic entities must be subdued and brought back into the fold, and that eventually everything in the universe will attain enlightenment, including the most evil. This is contrary to the Christian belief that Satan, who is not equal but in opposition to God, can never be redeemed. Unlike human beings who have never seen the face of God, Satan has seen the face of God. The scripture said, without faith it is impossible to please God. And it also said, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Without faith you cannot please God. Faith is operating with a confident expectation based on something you have not seen. This is why demons and angels are not savable, because they have seen the face of God, therefore cannot operate in faith. According to Buddhists, demons are not entities, but rather delusions that are represented as demonic entities. In Buddhism, people use demons to assist them in their meditation as a point of reference for their own inner demons that need to be subdued. The meditator seeks to become like the deity while subduing their inner demons. Buddhism is mainly practiced in China, Japan, Korea, and Vietnam, but due to the Chinese occupation of Tibet, Tibetan Buddhism has been adopted by international practitioners, notably those in the West. This is particularly significant when we consider the teachings of Helena Blavatsky and how she claims to have channeled the ascended master known as the Tibetan. Alice Bailey and many occultists incorporate Buddhist and Hindu practices, yogic practices, into their New Age practice. And so we see, as yoga and Eastern arts have become popular in the West, this is the gradual ushering of the West into the New Age. Many people remember the popular song by Rihanna, Umbrella. And although there are many occult symbols within that music video, I just want to focus in on one aspect of the video where she is standing almost in a white tutu. 6 times she is splashed with fluid that comes from the left and the right, and she appears to be fighting the fluid off. After this, she appears in black and is covered in silver. It is believed that the silver fluid is representative of the male reproductive fluid. When Jay-Z says there's no clouds in my stones, it's believed that he's referring to his testicles, meaning that his sexual organs are working properly. If the song Umbrella is truly a dialogue between Rihanna and Satan, where Satan is represented by Jay-Z, this song is insinuating that Rihanna, who was the good girl, is going to surrender herself completely to the dark side, in a way that is almost sexual, or indeed sexual, as we know Aleister Crowley promoted sex magic. And this is where we get the concept of the V sign with the tongue in between. It can mean violated by Satan. And so people who are practitioners of sex magic may engage in various sexual rituals and even desire to have relations with demonic entities or Satan himself. So it's believed that when she is splashed 6 times, which is again the number 6 coming into play, afterwards she is fully surrendered, or maybe even violated by Satan, symbolized by the splashing of the fluid. Afterwards she is completely covered in silver, meaning that he has overpowered her. At the beginning of the video, we enter after the garden through a water fountain, and you see droplets of moisture on the screen. You see droplets of moisture on the screen. The Assyrians of the ancient civilizations of Mesopotamia claim to have brought the strange cult of tree worship to a climax in the 9th century. This form of tree worship probably began with the carrying of a small plant or tree branch to represent the presence of the fertility or vegetation goddess. Over time it progressed into a highly stylized totem pole known as the Asherah, which is heavily criticized in the Bible and is why many people who practice Christianity today do not believe in erecting Christmas trees. What is interesting about the concept of the tree of life is that it became a sacred symbol of fertility, the tree representing the goddess of life, the queen of heaven, and incorporates fertility symbolism. The leaf-like palm of the ancient womb, divided into 7 compartments. The king is often seen approaching the tree with a bucket and a phallus-shaped cone. This may represent him being the sacred guardian, the gardener who alone is permitted to enter into the shadow of the goddess as her high priest and perform a ritual of fertilization using the sacred water or semen of the gods. He uses the phallic-shaped object to sprinkle the tree of life with this water. So the concept of fertilization by Satan, intercourse with demonic entities, is not that far-fetched, because the concept of worshipping trees and having the male and the female coming together through the tree and the gardener is as old as the 9th century BC. When Cardi says grab a bucket, could she actually be talking about the bucket that the sacred guardian or the gardener would use not to clean up the mess, but rather to sprinkle her with what is called the semen of the gods? The occult symbolism continues further. In addition to the black and white, almost checkerboard-like floor, we see that this lady stands on a black path. For those who are in the occult, they believe that those who are in the Christian faith are actually the ones in darkness. You will note that this is the only room with a bright window, and that the path leads directly to the window, between 2 pillars of gold, gold representing sun worship. She is moving towards the path of enlightenment. Having discarded the umbrella, she now basks in the full glory of illumination. We know that for people who are Luciferians and into Freemasonry, they believe that Lucifer is the true light bearer. So as you move towards the light, you become enlightened. On the left and the right, we see 2 statues that look very similar to the statue of the Venus de Milo. Although now the Venus de Milo does not have any arms, we know that if this is a reference to Venus, Venus moves through the sky in formation of a 5-point star. Once again, this is reverence to Ashtoreth, or Satan himself. And the black balls could also represent balls that would be on the pillars of Boaz and Joachim, but instead of placing them above the curtains, they just decorate the area around the room. Then we move on into the hallway once again, and we start looking into various different rooms with different people performing inside. This time we actually do see the Masonic checkerboard, and we see the colors red and somebody who is dressed very stereotypically like a devil. The room almost looks like a person burning in hell. And then the next character is very interesting. By now everybody has heard of Sukiana. Recently she went viral with a video that got leaked of her performing a sexual act on her boyfriend. She then clapped back at fans who criticized the video by saying that she is going to keep her man by engaging in certain sexual acts. But Sukiana just a year ago came out with a very interesting statement. Let's take a listen.
I got a message I want to give to my fans. Listen, I know y'all been watching my page, and I've been depressed lately. Y'all don't know why, but I want to tell y'all I apologize and I'm sorry for what I'm about to say. But as far as this music stuff, I won't be doing this music stuff anymore. I started this because this was my dream, and you know, I wanted to make sure I could get me and my kids out the hood. It's always been my passion to rap. A while ago, I had signed a contract, and I didn't know nothing about the business or this game out here. And just right now, I'm realizing that I signed my soul. I sold my soul to the devil. I signed myself to the devil. I don't even own myself no more. I sold my soul to the motherfucking devil, and I done prayed. I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. You know, and it's just like, I don't know if God can get me out of this, you know, and it's just like to the point where I don't even know, like I can't. I just want to say I'm sorry to my fans. I know y'all love me. I know y'all believe in me, but I can't. I didn't know what I was doing back then, and I lost passion. I don't even believe that. I don't even believe in myself no more because of what I did. I did not know the game was like this. And I'm just ready to go back to school. I'm just ready to move away and go to school. I just want to tell everybody I'm sorry. And you know, I won't be making any more music until I'm out of this contract. And who knows if that'll ever happen. Like, who knows if that can ever happen. I don't know. I done prayed and I prayed and I prayed. I don't even know if God can hear me at this point. But I just made the biggest mistake that I ever made. And I just hope, you know, if you're an artist, make sure you have an attorney to read over your contract, and don't let the person that you signed it to pick the attorney. Don't let them pay for the attorney either, because I mean the attorney working for them. But I just lost my passion
Could the leaking of this video be actually a humiliation ritual where Sukihana has to come out and counter the fact that she says she sold her soul to the devil? Could the devil be her manager? Could it be her handler or the entertainment industry? Or was she actually initiated into the occult? We can see here from these various images that Sukihana is definitely sold out to the industry. From the bearing of one breast to the 666 symbolism. Many people will have seen this image before of Pink wearing the outfit with one breast exposed and one trouser leg rolled up. Many people will assume that Sukihana is emulating Little Kim, but is Little Kim when you go through initiation? As we can see here, Sukihana, Little Kim, and this is Miley Cyrus imitating Little Kim, all bearing one breast in this jumpsuit. As I looked into this red and blue theme, it reminded me of one of Meg Thee Stallion's first big hits. Many people will remember Meg coming out for the song Big Old Freak. It was released in January of 2019. As you can see from the imagery, we have the Masonic black and white tiles. You also see Meg once again surrounded by 6 dancers. In the background of one of the shots, you can actually see a woman dancing in a bird cage. The bird cage is also a symbol of mind control. Meg Thee Stallion was introduced to the rap industry by her mother Holly Thomas, who rapped under the name Hollywood. By now most people are aware that it's believed that magicians make wands out of the wood of the holly tree. So when we see the concept of Hollywood, the entertainment industry, it is literally an organization designed through entertainment to cast spells on its audience, to shape their mind and to influence them into a certain way of thinking, the way a spell does. A spell is basically trying to take over somebody's will, and the way that you can take over somebody's will is by enslaving their mind. Although Big Ol' Freak was released in January of 2019, it wasn't until April of the same year that it actually made it onto the Billboard charts. This was Meg Thee Stallion's first chart entry and peaked at number 65. What's interesting is this is just 1 month after Meg Thee Stallion's mother died of a suspected brain tumor, making Meg Thee Stallion one of the latest additions to the long line of celebrities who around the time of them breaking out successfully had somebody close to them die. If we go back to the concept of satanic ritual abuse and sacrifice, we see here at the end of Big Ol' Freak, not only is Meg and the 6 women standing on the checkerboard floor, the color scheme is red and white. The red and white color scheme is symbolic of ritual sacrifice. Here we can see her striking the devil's horn pose, and in this image we see her wearing a t-shirt bearing a dragon, another symbol for Satan. There is the red and white for symbolism, and there is the red and blue, as in the Blue Lodge versus the Red Lodge. No music video is complete without a shot in the bath. Again, this is an allusion to the Baphomet and also satanic baptism. Once again, we have the color scheme of red and white, and I'm not going to go into how many celebrities have posed in the bath, including Sukihana in this cartoon version of herself, and many other celebrities who have taken pictures over the decades in the bathtub. Now, one of the people who found W.A.P very interesting was Christina Aguilera, who came out and said on Instagram, "W.A.P has got me feeling some type of way," once again depicted in a pool of water, this time not a bath but still water. It's not surprising that Christina Aguilera has something to say about this song, because nearly 20 years ago she herself performed in a prostitute song, Lady Marmalade, with Lil' Kim, Pink and Maya. As I was looking at images for Lady Marmalade, I came to notice something very interesting in the background. Many people are aware of the Pizzagate scandal and the idea that pedophiles communicate through signs and symbols. As I looked at the images of Lady Marmalade, I noticed something very interesting in the back of one of the shots. The symbol for girl lover. Whether that means girls loving other girls or adults being in love with little girls, it's interesting that this symbol appears in the background of this music video. What you will notice in all of these videos is that although the songs sing about engaging in sexual acts with men, there are no men in these videos. Prior to W.A.P being released, I came across a music video promoting girls loving other girls. I was going to do a video on it, but I decided that there wasn't really much to say. I just took it as this is a sign of the times that we live in. But after W.A.P dropped, I had to go back and take another look, and I began to notice once again the same kind of signs and symbols within the mainstream music industry. Most notably, this artist wearing pink hair or blue hair, again symbolizing the red and blue Hegelian dialectic, or the Red Lodge versus the Blue Lodge. She throws up the devil's horns, and also there is a moment where I didn't notice before, she has the all-seeing eye tattooed on her chest. Once again, we see the promotion of alternate lifestyles amongst the youth. So finally, we go back to the W.A.P house. Meg and Cardi look at each other. They don't seem to be sure what they want to do. So they turn around and run back down the corridor between the two pillars towards the square. Whereas they entered through opposite sides, now they leave together, running to the right-hand side. Although you cannot see from the image, the hallway is gradually filling with water, which means when we got to the beginning of the video, where you see water cascading down the steps, this is not the beginning of the video, but actually the end from the beginning. This is an attribute that only God has, to know the end from the beginning. So it is an allusion to Godhead and divinity in the concept of Satan trying to play God by trying to reveal the end from the beginning. Other things to note in this video is the concept of the three goddesses. Again, the triquetra, the mother, the daughter, and the crone. A lot of people are asking why Kylie Jenner was in this video, and I personally believe it was an allusion to three goddesses or a female trinity as opposed to a masculine one. These artists more and more are clearly being initiated into the occult, and they are used as pawns and puppets to lead whore culture or whore programming amongst the youth. From prostitution and coupling it with the new age, every generation has been provided with an archetype with which it can follow. I really appreciate everyone who took the time out to watch this video. If you do not know Jesus Christ as your Lord and personal Savior, please consider accepting Him today. As you can see, there is a concerted effort from people who govern our society to introduce all kind of alternate lifestyles, themes, and behaviors which are contrary to the will of God. Now, am I saying that people are really Luciferians? No, but there is definitely an agenda to place signs and symbols in our entertainment, in our music videos on a constant basis. There is clearly an agenda to introduce satanic themes to our everyday life. Whether or not these people believe in Satan or not, it is evident, and you can do your own research just by looking around you, that people are deliberately placing these signs and symbols in our everyday life. So let me know what signs and symbols you've seen today. Share this video with someone who needs to see it. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.